All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is Tracy Cromwell. I'm Coach Tracy, and I'm here doing a modified broadcast tonight. I have a very special guest with me, Jeff Chilton. He is the president of Nammex, and I'm really excited to have him on with me on my Your Personal Journey with Food broadcast. So, Jeff, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Tracy, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here to talk to you tonight.
Wonderful. Yeah. And so you are from the Northwest, which I thought was great. So I am as well. Yeah.
I know it's like Redmond. What a wonderful place. And I grew up in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Do you still live out here? Are you continuously now in the beautiful country of Mexico and 80-degree weather?
Well, yeah, I hate to say it to all of you people that are freezing in the Northwest right now, but I am in Oaxaca, Mexico, and it's 75 degrees and sunny every single day. But no, I actually live in British Columbia now, up on Vancouver Island.
Wow.
I live in a small community in Vancouver Island, and my business is located just north of Vancouver. The reason I'm down here is because, you know what? In today's world with a laptop, you can work from anywhere. And you know what? I have to admit, Tracy, I've kind of had it with Northwest winters.
Well, you picked a good one to leave town, that's for sure.
I know. I actually left at the end of October, so I even missed the rains and the flooding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of that. I always talk about it as what is that, a dysfunctional relationship, with the weather here. So.
Well, you know what? And we all just look forward to such wonderful spring, especially summer and then the fall, because it's just a beautiful place to be. It's evergreen. No, I love the Pacific Northwest. It's really my home, and I feel it deep down inside of me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. So with that, we always got to deal with the water and the wet and all of that makes it green. So,
well, yeah, and you know what? I love water. I love fresh water. Think about that for a minute. And speaking of fresh water, one of the things about the Pacific Northwest is it's one of the best areas in the world for wild mushrooms. And so I had mushrooms growing around me since I was small. And then, I got out and did mushroom hunting, and I went to University of Washington, and they actually had a mycology department there that studied mushrooms. And although my actual major was social anthropology, I put the two together, and I was studying the use of mushrooms worldwide for food, for medicine, and also for shamanic purposes. So that was my field of study. But of course, what happens when you get out of university with a degree in anthropology in the 70s? It's like there aren't any jobs, right?
So you have to create yours.
You do. But and what I was thinking at that time, I thought I'd really love to learn how to grow mushrooms. I went to my mycology professor, and he said, Jeff, there is a mushroom farm 60 miles down the road in Olympia, Washington. Go down there, talk to Bill, the owner. I did. I got a job there. Very exciting for me. I was there for the next 10 years, literally living with mushrooms. It was a very large farm. We were growing 2 million pounds of Agaricus mushrooms per year. And the coolest part about it was that we had a Japanese scientist there who was doing research on shiitake mushroom, enoki mushroom, and oyster mushroom. So I also got to see how to grow those, what we called specialty mushrooms as well. So it was just a really interesting 10 years.
That's so wonderful. And I had no idea that even existed in Washington. And granted, I know anytime I go on a hike or I'm outside or I look in a yard, I see mushrooms everywhere, incredible mushrooms
Yes.
everywhere. I'm definitely not an expert. I know the basics for what I would put in my food, and I know that there are medicinal purposes for mushrooms, and all of that. And it's just such an expansive um, area. It's just incredible. And so, what intrigued me to talk to you, when I found out, about you, was again just all the areas that mushrooms can benefit us in so many ways, flavor, and then medicinal and everything else you just mentioned.
And let me just talk to you a little bit about the nutritional value of mushrooms, because that's something that a lot of people don't know much about.
Mhm.
What was interesting is when I started in 1973, classical nutritionists basically said mushrooms have no food value.
Mm.
Well, can you imagine any particular, let's just say, plant or animal, or in this case, fungus, having no nutritional value, something that's actually growing out of the ground?
Mhm.
Well, the reason they said that, Tracy, was because mushrooms are low in calories and high in fiber. And in the 70s, if you didn't have calories, it was a non-food, period, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. So actually, mushrooms are a really good food. They have high quality protein, anywhere from 20 to 40%. And I'm going to give you ranges now because every mushroom species is different.
Mhm, mhm.
20 to 40% protein. That protein has all the essential amino acids except for one, high in carbohydrates, but those are non-starch carbohydrates. So those are carbohydrates like mannitol, trehalose, which are very slow acting carbohydrates, which is what we want. We don't
Yes.
want those carbohydrates that we eat like starch, like a baked potato or something. And next thing you know, we get this real rush of glucose, and then we
Mhm.
come down from it on the other side. No, we want slow acting foods. So that's the kind of carbohydrates mushrooms have, including one very specific one that is super important, which is what gives mushrooms its immunological activities, and that are compounds called beta glucans.
Yeah.
And beta glucans make up 50% of the mushroom cell wall, and beta glucans actually activate our immune system. Now, we'll talk about those a little bit more as we go along, but the
Yes.
other things about the nutritional values mushrooms are low in fat, no
Mhm,
calories,
mhm,
and they have a good amount of potassium, phosphorus, high in B vitamins, B1, 2, and 3, good amounts of B vitamins,
mhm.
and again, very high in fiber. And these days it's like, well, we sort of know that fiber is indeed important, right? So
Yes.
it's all in all a excellent food. I look at it as the missing dietary link and the forgotten food. It's something I say to people: put mushrooms into your diet. They
Yes.
are a wonderful, wonderful, very, very versatile food.
They are. They're incredible. And I kind of remember back, you know, the beginnings of nutrition and what we were taught about food and all of that. And that whole thing actually made me a yo-yo dieter. It made me gain weight, lose weight, made me bloated, made me miserable, and highly processed breads, foods, you know what that was like.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and I'm just so grateful that we are finding that nutrient dense food is the key, not calories. It's, how can you get high nutrition into your food, into your diet, into your body, because it makes all the difference. And as I started to learn about mushrooms, I knew their ability, just to bring nutrients. to my body. I love the flavors. I love all of that. And I agree with you. You know, you can get mushrooms in your meals every single day. You know, that's what we do. I mean, we eat a lot of mushrooms. So I love them. And so, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and you know, I can tell you subscribe to certainly what I subscribe to, which is the foundation of our health is diet, what we eat. That's the literal foundation that we start from with everything else that are so important, whether it be exercise or fresh air, clean water. Aren't we so lucky in the Pacific Northwest that we have clean, fresh water that we can drink? It's coming right out of the tap.
Yeah.
Right out of the tap. Think about that for a minute. Yeah. My whole life, I've been drinking water right out of the tap, and you go places now and the tap water is like, forget it, do not drink it. And they provide you with bottled water. And it's just a travesty. And the water we drink is delicious, absolutely delicious. And I learned that very early on because our family would take trips to LA in the late 50s to visit my aunt and uncle. All of their water was coming out of a 5-gallon jug that was delivered to them on a regular basis because they could not drink what was coming out of the tap. So instead, they got essentially what I would call processed water in these jugs, and that's what they were drinking.
Yeah, it's incredible. Just thinking of, you know, just speaking of, and again, I think about just mushrooms, for example, and the need for, we need plants to have water, fresh water to grow, and gardens have to have fresh water. So do we. And I'm so glad that, you know, I'm hoping if I was to look ahead in time that we can get a hold of all that and change the direction that we're going with our water.
It just makes me want to cry when I see people buying bottled water at the market. It just, you know, even where I'm living in British Columbia, there are some people that are sort of like, I don't know, they've been programmed to think that, oh, you should be drinking bottled water. And I'm like, why are you buying bottled water? It's coming right out of your tap. Yes, indeed. And again, like I say, I just feel like we're so very fortunate to be in a part of the world. And it's that's shrinking all the time in terms of places that actually have clean water. I mean, it's down here where I'm in Mexico. No, it's all bottled water down here. In fact, what's interesting is this city that I'm in, they don't even have piped water into the city. It comes in tanker trucks.
Wow, interesting.
And they fill up cisterns in the hotels and in the businesses all around. They don't even have it like being piped in like we would be used to having, right? So it's a totally different world out there when it comes to these types of things. But, you know, I guess what's really interesting to me about mushrooms is that, and what I like to make sure people understand is that the reason why a lot of people don't like mushrooms is they've not been cooked properly. You know, and part of it is if you cook a mushroom on a low heat, all the water comes right out of it, and now you have these mushrooms sitting in a pond. Now, if you're making a gravy, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you want something that has good texture, tastes good, fry it in a hot pan, your favorite oil, however you do it. That way, what I do, I just kind of sear both sides of it. Don't cut it too thin, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Like to brown both sides. Then essentially I will cook them maybe a little longer than most. They will shrink. Don't worry about it. You think you've put a lot in, they shrink to half their size.
It's so small.
You think you put in a lot, and it's just like, oh, I guess not, or you haven't put in enough and you're like, where'd they go? So that's so important. I mean, I think every parent has heard their child say, oh, I hate mushrooms. They're so slimy, And I'm like, well, they haven't been cooked properly. And look, you can put mushrooms into almost anything. Whether it's a stir fry. I'm a meat eater. I eat them every time I have meat. I'll chop them up with onions and mix them together with ground round into my hamburger. I mean, they're so versatile. They just go with everything. And so lucky these days, we've got maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 different species in the markets. And then, of course, as you have already related to me, in the fall, you can go out and you can collect chanterelles for one, which is like, wow, what a treat, huh?
And they're so expensive to buy. You want chanterelles, good chanterelles. It's like, wow. Yeah.
Yes. So again, I was going to say the first thing I always recommend to people is look, put mushrooms into your diet. And the other thing too, I like to tell people, and this is especially true of wild mushrooms, is look, every food somebody will be a little bit allergic to, doesn't matter what it is. Don't slice up a whole bunch, eat them all, and then later on go, oh my God, they don't agree with me. Take it easy, eat a little bit, make sure they agree with you before you move on. And there's lots of species again that you can get in the supermarket. Try them out. My favorite mushroom, I don't know about you, my favorite mushroom is shiitake.
Oh, they're so good.
Oh my God, the flavor.
I'm salivating right now.
I know. And in China, it's called Shanggu, the fragrant mushroom, and it's got such a wonderful odor. It's got a wonderful aftertaste too. It is just it's the number one mushroom that is cultivated in the world. Shiitake mushroom right now is number one.
I didn't know that. I was thinking, the little baby portobellos or the little white button, but that's what we mostly see here.
Exactly. No, shiitake in Asia they grow, well, tons of it over there. And now we grow quite a bit of shiitake in the United States. So it has become the number one edible mushroom in the world, and for good reason. And look, having been somebody who spent 10 years on a very big farm growing agaricus mushrooms, and agaricus, by the way, are the creminis and the portobellos. They're the same as that button mushroom. It's all the same species. The difference is that very large portobello, it's just allowed this mushroom to mature, because the button mushroom don't allow it to mature. They keep it at an immature stage. That gives it a very good shelf life ultimately. So that's really the reason that it's being sold as a button. But again, like I say, please eat mushrooms even before you supplement. And I'm in the supplement business, but even before you supplement, I'm just saying, eat mushrooms, try shiitake. It's wonderful. Oyster mushroom has kind of a very light, not a very strong flavor. So oyster mushroom's very good for a lot of things. You've got maitake. Sometimes if you're lucky, you might be able to get lion's mane. Lion's mane, shiitake, maitake. Not only are you getting a nutritionally beneficial mushroom, but those are also some of our best medicinal mushrooms as well. So wouldn't it be a wonderful thing, Tracy, if our food was medicine?
And guess what? It can be.
Yes.
And it should be.
It can be. And I know that you're very familiar with that concept, right?
Absolutely.
Very familiar with it.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I'm sure you teach that as well.
What we consume becomes our blood, becomes our cells, becomes us, and also, what programs our cells. What we eat is programming, and I I guess I come from the background. It's an interesting background of where I didn't really follow any of this. I thought it was a little bit, you know,
Woo-woo.
silly. I was stuck on the other side of the fence, and I thought,
Yeah.
why would there be food on the shelves at the grocery store that says 100% nutrition on it, and why would that not be true? So I was definitely a victim of marketing, of just, and then also just overwhelmed by what I thought would be so hard to try and learn how to eat healthy, but then I also didn't know even what that was. And so that
Yeah.
whole gamut of um, you know, not knowing what to do with real food, um, I I ended up pre-diabetic and overweight, and but that moment when I was told, gosh, you can change this, just modify your diet. Of course, got sent on my way. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. But I just started a little at a time. And so one thing I do want to say, I always have loved mushrooms. So that was easy. But I learned that, I'm glad I went through that experience, because I know what it's like to be stuck on that side of things where you just don't know, and you don't know how to implement any of this. You don't know, it seems overwhelming. But I am so happy that I made that journey happen over several years of trying to figure it out. But, food, I realized I had anxiety. I had digestion problems, diarrhea, all of these things growing up and into my adult life, because I didn't understand what was happening when I put something in my mouth and
Yeah.
swallowed it. And so now, even during Christmas here, this holiday, I've kind of let myself, go a little bit swayed. And I actually have indigestion right now. I was like, I wanted that stuffing for dinner, I wanted the stuffing and the gravy. And yeah, I'm just like, okay, you got to get back to it. My poor, but
Yeah.
when I
Maybe
was,
a little bit more sugar too. Just the
yeah, when I was,
desserts.
the one before, I was so mindless to the connection. I just didn't realize and I know there's a lot of people out there that you don't have that connection yet. And so what you're saying is so true. Food can be our medicine, and it should be real food. Real food is what our body knows how to handle, knows what to do with. And one of those is mushrooms. And, and with that, yeah, adding just a little bit at a time. One fun thing too, I know if I have my organic mushrooms and stuff, I always leave a little bit of dirt on it. I'm always like, I'm like a little bit of dirt. And then I have a little garden and, nearby with my sister, and
Yeah.
I leave a little dirt on my
Oh,
produce.
you know what, Tracy, good for you. That is very interesting to me because, the button mushroom certainly is actually, people think, oh, it's just growing out of a compost or something like that. Well, no, they cover that compost with what's called a casing layer, which is actually peat moss. So actually, with the button mushroom, what you're getting is little pieces of peat moss that could still be adhering to the cap, not actually dirt. But do you remember this expression of we all have to eat a pound of dirt? Because that's what I learned growing up, is that essentially, because we're out playing in the soil and we're dirty all the time. Our hands you were in the dirt. And look, it's kind of like what sort of disturbs me about what's going on right now is everywhere you go, it's like, it's like sanitizing.
Yeah.
And what am I supposed to do? Live in a bubble? No, we live with all these microorganisms and viruses and everything else. That's why we have an immune system.
Yeah.
That's what strengthens our immune system, is eating that pound of dirt and being out there in nature, being a part of that. We do not live in isolation. And, I've just been, just over the last 10, 20 years, and the whole thing about cleaning everything and sanitizing everything, and here's a new sanitizer that you can use.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh my God, just give me some good old fashioned soap. That's all I need.
Yeah. Yeah, and
It doesn't have to be complex.
exactly. And so my sister and I, who I have the garden with, we actually started to do, I watched the movie Kiss the Ground. And so we stopped tilling our soil. And so we're really working on getting that microbiome of our soil just perfect. It was so exciting because just 1 season of doing that. And I accidentally pulled up a little bit too much of the broccoli stem. I meant to cut it up. And I had such a great looking little ecosystem, in
Lots of
there. It was really
worms in
like,
there.
it was like a little ecosystem. I was like, oh, and so that's the other fun part about having the garden. I know where my food's coming from. I don't mind having that dirt. I've grown that. I've placed it, that soil. And
That's right.
very exciting. So, definitely when I'm buying organic, I don't mind so much not washing everything off. So I get a little bit of dirt.
Yeah, well, you know what is I actually my grandparents were farmers, and they
Mm-hmm.
were up in the Bellingham area. They had a cash crop, which was strawberries. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
love up there in the summer and picking strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
They had a massively large food garden,
Mm-hmm.
corn, all sorts. We'd go up there for Thanksgiving. And let me tell you, the Thanksgiving dinners, I'll never forget those, because if you want to talk about real food, unprocessed food, my grandmother was a fabulous cook. And every year they would process all of that food that came out of their garden, fresh food. I'm pretty positive that there were no chemicals going on in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, in a sense, had a connection to all of that.
Yeah.
So certainly for me, as I progressed in my life, I learned a lot, certainly, about real food. And also during the 70s and early 80s, I had a lot of friends that were deeply into the permaculture movement. And the wonderful thing about mushrooms is that mushrooms are nature's decomposers. So they're out there recycling all of that organic matter that falls to earth, the leaves, the branches, the annual plants that die. All of that is being recycled. They're doing a lot of that work, along with, of course, all of the other organisms involved. Like noted, which I think is really important, this is an ecosystem, but this is what fungi do. And that's the wonderful thing about mushroom growing, is we actually grow mushrooms by recycling waste agricultural products or waste forestry products in the form of sawdust. So our mushrooms are grown primarily on sawdust, because interestingly enough, most medicinal mushrooms are wood decomposers. And that's fascinating to me. Wood decomposers, those are the ones that actually have the higher levels of medicinal compounds.
That's so cool that you said that. I'm in the midst of reading a book called The Hidden Life of Trees. And there was a chapter.
I got the book, yes.
Yeah, and in there was talking about the mushrooms and what they do with the trees and and all of that. And if there's a tree that is weak, or that's when they start to grow.
That yes, indeed. Indeed. And they are just part of a forest. It's kind of like you don't ever get rid of them. You don't ever want to. So again, that's part of this ecosystem that we live in. And like everything else, if it's you know, and what happens oftentimes is that a branch will get broken off, or maybe it's just growing, a tree's growing in the wrong place. It is weaker. A fungus will move in on it, start to live with it essentially by at the same time as the tree is still growing, it will continue on, but at a certain point, it will stop growing, it will die. And sometimes these trees like that, they'll break off halfway up and they could still be fairly large trees. So it's a really interesting ecosystem.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Okay, so let's go on. I would love to talk about the medicinal aspect, and I don't want to keep you all evening. I know you're a couple hours ahead of me, but
no. That's just fine. There's no problem at all.
So, you know, I know a bit. You know, I guess the main one I've learned most about is reishi mushroom, but the other one you were talking about some additional ones, but also just the key part of mushrooms for our immune system and our ability for our immune system to function the way it's supposed to, and how mushrooms can assist our immune system in doing so. So yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Well, sure. And you know, God, in today's world too, you know, talking about immunity and our ability to basically resist, whether it be a virus or some kind of microorganism, it could be a fungus, it could be a bacteria, whatever it is. Now, the beta glucan that mushrooms have in them is a very special beta glucan. It's called a 1316 beta glucan. And that's a way that they would describe the architecture of this particular beta glucan. When we consume these beta glucans, we have a receptor site specific to beta glucans. So they will come down, link up with that receptor site, which then will, and what I like to say is potentiate our immune system. And so what that means is they will stimulate the production of macrophages, T cells, NK cells, which then will produce cytokines, and those will meet the challenge. And you know, this is another thing. I really feel like, you know, I hate the metaphor of killing this and killing that, and we've got to, you know, it's like this whole thing of war, going to war. To me, it's like we have challenges, health challenges in our life. It could be microorganisms, it could be something else. And what we have to do is maintain a strong, healthy body so that we can meet those challenges and stay healthy. And that's what mushrooms help us do. And the way I look at them is as preventive medicine. And that's the same thing that we've been talking about with diet. Diet is prevention. Diet is allowing us to meet the challenges that come up in life that bring us illness. So if we're healthy, and part of that means we are consuming not only good, high quality organic food, but also we can be consuming plants that have specific compounds that give benefits that can help us meet these challenges. And that's where the beta glucans in the mushrooms come in. And they're just one set of compounds that will help us. There are others, like reishi has compounds called triterpenoids, which make reishi very bitter. Have you ever actually tried a reishi at all? Or
I have not. I would love to, but I've had it, you know, in a supplement form. So
right, because the reishi mushroom itself, you know, you've seen those mushrooms that grow off the side of the trees in the Pacific Northwest, you know? Okay, well, reishi also grows from a dead tree, not really a living tree, a dead tree that's down. And when you harvest that and dry it out, it is as hard as wood. You cannot eat it, which is why it's primarily used as a tea, but it also has these very powerful compounds in it called triterpenoids, which are very good for our liver, for cleansing our blood too, and they're very bitter compounds. So if you've got a reishi product, it will be very bitter, and a reishi tea is very bitter. And that's why a lot of people, of course, would prefer to get the reishi in a capsule.
Ah, I'm going to go buy some tea now. I'm going to try it.
Yeah,
Just to see that I tasted it.
Yeah. And reishis, look, reishi is a very special mushroom. It's something that I don't know. Have you ever seen an actual reishi mushroom or a picture of it,
A
anything like that?
picture.
It is red. It is shaped kind of like a ram's horn. It's got this classical spiral shape to it. And so it's just beautiful. There have been mythologies written about it in China. You see it in their art, their architecture. It's a very special mushroom, which is, I always say to people, look, if there's one particular mushroom that you should be eating, that's the one.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I will do more of that now.
So other mushrooms that are very good would be shiitake, maitake, in terms of potentiating the immune system. That's what those mushrooms are noted for. And again, most of the mushrooms will provide that activity, but there are other mushrooms, for example, like lion's mane. Are you familiar with lion's mane at all?
A little bit, not a lot, but a little. That's why you're on.
Lion's mane is so popular right now. I mean, it really is. And the reason is that it has these compounds in it that stimulate what's called nerve growth factor. We produce nerve growth factor. As we get older, we produce less of it. And it's very important for management, organization, and even stimulating production of neurons. So that ultimately, they've done studies with lion's mane that shows that it can help with memory. Well, my goodness, who doesn't want that?
Exactly.
and so it's in a category that a lot of people put products in called a nootropic. And a nootropic is anything that will potentiate our physical being in some way, something that aids us, but is not actually, like a drug or something like that. In fact, a nootropic, you could even call a coffee a nootropic, because it's a stimulant. It has phytochemicals in it. But lion's mane, because of the what it does in terms of helping our memory, it's something now that so many people are interested in, and it's become our top selling mushroom, believe it or not. You just think, and it's just sort of come out of nowhere to all of a sudden. But I mean, it's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for a long time, but now it's become very, very popular out in the mainstream. And you know how many different products there are out there for
so many
that type of, for your memory and let's just say enhancement of your productivity and things like that. So a lot of people look at lion's mane in that way.
Interesting. I'm also familiar with, say cordyceps in products.
Cordyceps. Yeah. Have you ever seen a picture of the actual wild cordyceps?
I can't say that I have. I probably have, but I wouldn't be able to tell you I know what that looks like.
Cordyceps is actually called caterpillar fungus.
Oh, cool.
Because in the wilds, it actually grows on a caterpillar that has hibernated. And while the caterpillar is hibernating, the spores of the cordyceps will germinate inside this caterpillar. And while the caterpillar is sleeping over winter, hibernating, it is consuming the whole caterpillar until all that's left is the shell. And then in the summertime, up comes this little tiny, very blade-like, grass-like cordyceps mushroom. So in China, they call it winter worm, summer grass, and they harvest it in the wild with the caterpillar. And that comes with it when people eat the traditional wild-crafted cordyceps. They're eating the caterpillar and the fungus that's attached to it.
Oh my word. I had no idea. That is
Now,
so intriguing. Oh, are you there?
well,
There you are.
I am, and so what's interesting is that it is so expensive.
Oh.
It is so expensive. And
Oh. Hold on, everybody. We've just got to let our internet.
it looks like the connection's
There we
a
go.
little bit unstable.
Just a little
Okay.
unstable.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to work our way through this.
No, you're good. I was just saying to everybody, hey, just hold tight till the Wi-Fi catches up. But I love what you were saying about the cordyceps mushroom is incredible. And that you were mentioning that it's very expensive to cultivate.
Yes. Yes. And well, actually, the wild crafted is very expensive, and $15,000 a dried kilogram. But that never makes it into our market because it's too expensive. And actually, in the last 10 years, we have learned how to grow cordyceps. So now all the cordyceps that we sell certainly is grown, it's cultivated, it's inexpensive. And not only that, what's really interesting about the cordyceps is it's also a delicious food. So whenever we're traveling in China, they've got fresh cordyceps in the marketplace, so we can be eating it too. I'll actually send you a platter of cordyceps so you can see what it looks like, because they're just very tiny little, I don't know, I hate to say worm-like, but and Tracy, they're bright orange.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it is the most amazing looking fungus you have ever seen. It's delicious. And what it's been used for traditionally is people who have an illness and they haven't quite been able to break out of it. They give them cordyceps to give them more energy. So if people are fatigued, that's where they use cordyceps. And you think fatigue, energy, and right away, everybody's going, oh, great, sports products. So that's where most of it is used, but it can be used for anybody that feels a little bit energy less, and something that maybe can help them pull out of that. So that's where cordyceps really fits in. But it is just such a cool little mushroom, not at all the way we would think a mushroom is supposed to look, totally different look. So I'll send you this picture of it.
I would love that.
It is just so cool. And one of the things I really want to stress here too, and that is that mushrooms are expensive to grow. You can go into the marketplace, you can buy mushrooms in the United States, and maybe you'll pay, $5 to, let's say, $15 a pound. Every single mushroom you've ever eaten has been picked by hand. Picked by hand. When I was at the mushroom farm, and every house, the yield was 20,000 pounds per crop. And that crop of 20,000 pounds was probably 500,000 individual mushrooms. And,
Wow.
and mushrooms do not sleep. When you're growing them, they keep growing until the cycle is over, which is a 90-day cycle. So what's happening on a mushroom farm is we've got multiple crops in every stage, so that, let's just say, every week 5 crops are being taken out and what we call dumped, and 5 new crops are brought in. Now, why I'm telling you this is because when you want to use a mushroom as a supplement is a dried powder.
Yes.
Mushrooms are 90% water.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of that $5 you would get for your pound of mushrooms, you have to sell it for $50 now. The economics don't work in the United States, which is why, knowing the economics of mushroom growing, in 1989, I went to China. I traveled through China, which was just amazing in the 90s. I visited research stations, farms, went to conferences, made all sorts of connections, started bringing mushrooms in, because literally we would not have mushroom supplements today unless we can get them from a place like China. Interestingly enough, China grows 85% of the world's mushrooms. In 1997, I went over there with the largest organic certification organization in the US. We had the very first workshop for mushroom cultivation in China, 1997. All of our mushrooms are certified organic by high quality German certifiers. And you know, I'm a locavore. I totally believe in eating locally. So it kind of goes against the grain. But the fact is that that's the only way that we could actually get mushroom supplements. And here's what has happened because of that. Some companies, first of all, this organism we call a mushroom, this fungal organism, it doesn't have seeds. How do we plant it? It doesn't have seeds.
That's right.
Well, mushrooms have spores.
That's
Those
right.
spores go out in nature, flying on the wind currents. And when conditions are right, they germinate into a very fine thread-like filament. When multiple of those filaments come together, they form a network. That network is called mycelium. That is something we will never, or we will not normally see. But that network of mycelium is the vegetative body. It's underground, it's buried in a piece of wood. When conditions are right, up pops the mushroom. So, and then the mushroom goes through its different stages of maturity until finally the cap opens up. We see the gills, the spores are produced. We have the completion of the life cycle. What do we have? We have 3 different plant parts. We have a spore, we have a mycelium, we have a mushroom. So when you go to buy a supplement, it has to tell you on the label, what part of this plant are you getting? Are you getting the root? Are you getting the flower, the leaf? Because each one of those different parts will have a different amount of the medicinal compounds. So somebody could be selling you the leaf of, let's say, echinacea, and you think, oh, I'm getting echinacea, when you're actually not getting the compounds you should be getting. So what has happened in the United States, since you can't grow mushrooms for medicinal purpose or supplement purposes, they will grow out the mycelium on sterilized grain in a laboratory until the grain is completely covered with this mycelium, which is the vegetative body. Then they will dry it out, grain and all, grind it to a powder and call it mushroom, when in fact what it is mostly is grain powder. So half of the supplements on the market are this particular product of mycelium that has grown on grain, but the mycelium is only a small part of that. It's mostly the grain. Are you familiar with tempeh?
Tempeh, yes.
Do you know how it's made?
I do not. No.
Well, tempeh is cooked soybeans
Right.
with fungal mycelium growing on it. So when you're eating tempeh, you're eating mycelium. Wonderful food.
Yes.
But if you look at tempeh, you'll notice that it is mostly soy.
Yeah.
And that is what is being sold as mushroom, a tempeh-like product, mycelium that has been grown on a grain.
I did not know that. Yeah.
And it's a literal bait and switch, and also it's being mislabeled, because if you buy one of those supplements, on the front panel it'll have a picture of a mushroom and it'll say Shiitake mushroom, and you think, I'm buying a mushroom supplement. Maybe if you're lucky, you turn it over into the supplements facts panel and it will say mycelium, and maybe if you're lucky, in the fine print it will say myceliated rice, myceliated oats. What they are selling you is tempeh with no mushroom in it. And this is what's going on in the US market right now by companies. And the reason they're doing that is because it's too expensive to grow mushrooms. So instead, they grow tempeh, they dry it, grind that tempeh to a powder, and then call it mushroom and sell it as a supplement.
Wow. See, that's where it's frustrating. So
Oh
frustrating
my
to me.
God.
And that frustrates me because it does make people wary of any supplement. And there are those that are out there that are very good, that do have what's on the label. And it's just, and that's, I guess, where I was in the beginning too, is I didn't take vitamins because, number one, I didn't know where to start. And how do I know what I'm getting? And how do I, and so the research and doing all of my behind the scenes has been very helpful. But yeah, now your company, though, you provide organic, ingredients for supplements with proven efficacy, all of that. So that to me is a huge endeavor. And I think about the courage or even the mindset to be able to go through all that to create this is incredible. So let's talk a little bit about that. And then I have to let you go because it's late.
Yes. Yeah. And let me just say, my company's been organically certified since 1992.
Awesome.
I believe in that. And it really makes me angry when I hear people say, oh, organics, that's baloney, and, they're not really organic, and on and on and on. And I'm just like, you have no idea what we go through to create products without chemicals. And if you're growing something out of the soil, even that, having to leave something fallow for 3 years, and then having to look out for chemical drift and all the rest, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And so that frustrates me. And also, as you said, look, the supplement industry, I'm part of that, but there is so much garbage out there, just bad products, and it's unfortunate. And the thing about it is that is frustrating is that you can have a product that says organic, kosher, done in under these conditions, on and on and on, have what I call all these different merit badges, and still be a lousy product because it wasn't a good product to begin with. So you have to be so careful. You have to look at the label like with a food product, for goodness sakes.
See, and everybody, I was one of those. I didn't want to have to read the label. I didn't want to have to do the work. I was exhausted. I had too much going on in my life. I should be able to look at the front label, buy it. And then when I realized, and I finally started to slow myself down and turn the box around, and then I get overwhelmed by the long names and all this and that. And they said, like, hey, you got good vitamins, you've got all this and that. So my next step was supplements, like how, okay, fine, take it a little step at a time. Read it, flip that around, do some research online. I know we shouldn't have to work that hard as consumers to find a good product.
Oh man,
but it's worth it.
I know.
It's worth it.
It is worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it.
I still, anything I pick up that, sort of in the center aisles, I right away go to the ingredients. I want to know what's in it. I want to know what's in it.
Doesn't matter what the front says.
That's right. And I don't eat processed foods. I mean, I eat so many vegetables, and my favorite vegetable is broccoli. I love broccoli, cauliflower. I mean, it is just a wonderful, wonderful vegetable. And anybody that says they don't like broccoli, I'm just like shocked. Are you kidding?
They just haven't had broccoli.
That's because you know how sometimes you get broccoli and it's just sweet, and you're just like, oh my goodness, did I luck out today?
Yes.
Yeah. This is fresh food. Check the labels.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I know I could talk to you for a whole other hour easily. So maybe I should have you back on in a few months to finish what I would love to hear from you. But anything, I want to let you go because I know it's probably 10 something there right now. So I want to let you get off of here. And any final words that you would like everyone to know,
Well, yeah, my final words are always pretty much the same, which is, look, before you even think about supplementing, put mushrooms into your diet. If you haven't eaten mushrooms much, or you have kind of a negative view, try a different species, cook it properly, try it out. They have a wonderful flavor. It's very versatile. You can put it into different things. And so get mushrooms into your diet. That's the missing dietary link. I just keep saying that to people, where you're missing out. So that's primarily my message, is mushrooms as food. Do it. Afterwards, once you've done that, you want to think about supplementing, great. Let's do that, but put them into your diet, please, and try shiitake mushrooms. You won't be disappointed.
I can vouch for that. They're so good. I love them. Oh, okay, Jeff. Thank you so much again for being on. I really appreciate it. And I may have to contact you in a couple of months and get you on here again and ask you a few more questions. So.
Sure. Well, it's just been a pleasure getting to know you, Tracy, and it's been great speaking with you tonight. And I look forward to doing that again. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy the warm.
I will. Enjoy. Get out with your sled.
Yes, definitely. All right. Take care.
All right. See you.
Bye. Bye.